Good evening, everyone. I'm Surbi Singhal, extending a warm welcome on behalf of International Council for Circular Economy. Today marks the commencement of the seventh session of our webinar series titled Transforming India's Infrastructure, where we are privileged to have experts representing diverse industry sectors. This webinar series is designed to unite groundbreaking processes, ideas, solutions, and the widespread dissemination of knowledge. We are happy to conduct this series in collaboration with PM Gati Shakti School of Center of Excellence in Logistics and Supply Chain Management, School of Management, Doon University. A gentle reminder to all the participants to kindly keep your microphones muted and utilize the chat box, which if you have any queries or any questions, you can use the chat box for any kind of communication. In our previous webinar, we delved into the topic of how can different sectors collaborate to make the transition to a circular economy, wherein we talked about the participation of all stakeholders along the entire supply chain. Today, our focus shifts to the theme of the role of policy and regulation in driving a circular economy. What policies can be put in place to incentivize circularity? Before we embark on our discussion, let me extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speakers and today's moderator. Our first speaker of the day is Dr. Anjali Taneja. She is Senior Policy Specialist and Group Head, Sustainability, Center of Study and of Science, Technology and Policy, C-STEP, Bengaluru. Dr. Anjali Taneja is an economist and a seasoned sustainability expert. Over the last 15 years, Dr. Taneja has led several sustainability initiatives during her tenure with the UNDP, Ashoka University, and national industry chambers like FICCI and CII in India and overseas. She is helping in the preparation of the vision, strategy, and action plan on circular economy in the telecommunications sector for Department of Telecommunications, Government of India. At the same time, she is also serving on the board of International Council for Circular Economy, ICCE, as the honorary advisor. Thanks, Dr. Anjali, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And I look forward to the engaging discussions today.
Sure. Next, we have Mr. Sunil Thawani, CEO, Quality Indeed Consulting, UAE. He is the ex-board member of American Society of Quality. Mr. Sunil is an author and a great orator advocating UN SDGs and circular economy. Mr. Sunil's project on circular economy in built environment has been released during COP28 UAE. He has co-authored several articles with Ms. Marina Prokacheva on circular economy. Welcome, Mr. Sunil. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, our third speaker is Maya Sherman. She is an AI consultant at Karo Sambhav, Tech Development Fellow in the American India Foundation. Maya is an AI policy researcher, ethicist, and author with over a decade of experience in AI policy, responsible AI, and digital transformation across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Maya also serves as an AI expert in the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence as part of the Future of Work Council. Our fourth speaker of the day is Shoumita Bhattacharya, Program Manager, EcoSattva Environmental Solutions. Shoumita is a waste management specialist with expertise in municipal and rural waste operations, waste-based livelihood development, and capacity building of informal workforce. Shoumita has 7 years of experience of executing public-private partnerships and policy implementation of effective and impactful climate action. Welcome, Shoumita. Thanks for joining the webinar.
Thanks, Surbi. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
As we move ahead into this interesting session, I'm delighted to introduce our esteemed moderator, Dr. Sudhanshu Joshi, coordinator of the PM Gati Shakti Center of Excellence at the School of Management, Doon University. Dr. Sudhanshu is a PhD holder in supply chain management, certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and discipline Agile Scrum Master. Dr. Sudhanshu is also a visiting professor at the University of Technology, Sydney, Australia, with an impressive research portfolio encompassing sustainable supply chains, artificial intelligence, circular economy, Industry 4.0, 5.0, and more. Thank you, Dr. Sudhanshu, for your invaluable contributions. The stage is yours now.
Much thanks to you, Ms. Surbi, and welcome all of the participants and our esteemed panelists. So let me, rush to the questions. And as we know that webinar is based on the topic of role of policy and regulation in driving a circular economy, and the role of, policies for incentivizing the circularity. So we have very esteemed, panelists for today, and let me start with Anjali. Dr. Anjali, since you have a very, very impressive track record of, doing research on solar photovoltaic waste, and particularly your most of the research and work you're doing is in India or developing countries. So, what sort of major challenges you come across while you were developing the recycling framework for the same? So, can you please give us more insights on? Yeah, please.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Dr. Joshi, and it's wonderful to getting a chance to reconnect with you. So just to give a brief background, so been working in the circular economy space for quite some time, and recently we came out at C-STEP a kind of a recycling framework for solar PV waste management. Okay, so essentially the major facets were that today we see the solar photovoltaic waste, primarily ground-mounted PV waste, ground-mounted PV panels. So they have an end of life, which is around 15 to 20 years. Okay, and one of the challenges now during the process, and I won't say challenges per se, it's more like opportunities, potential opportunities that could be converted is actually a change in the mindset. So some of the stakeholders that we spoke to, the mindset is that since it's 15 to 20 years, they have an end of life, then why to actually discuss about it now? Why to worry about it now? Which is a very different, which is a very wrong, I would say, a very misplaced understanding, because it is the right time to actually start getting some infrastructure and some really good policy decisions in place. So one of the challenges was actually to make them understand that, yes, it is important to actually start thinking about it today. If we are saying that over the next 15 years, today's solar PV panels are expected to witness an end of life. And unfortunately, if we say the waste, it's expected to be 4.5 million tons by 2045, 2046. And India is unfortunately expected to be the fourth largest PV waste generator. So if we are looking at that quantum of waste globally from India, then I think the important thing is to actually start thinking about it now, start institutionalizing now. And I'm not saying that the government is not doing anything. Actually, there have been a lot of good policy interventions in this space. But some of the stakeholders from the industry feel that what is the need of getting into this space, the off-takers primarily at this point. So that is definitely, there's a need to a change in the mindset. Second challenge, again, not a challenge, an opportunity is that the data in this space, when we talk about the off-takers or the recyclers, that is quite scattered across the country. We don't know essentially which states have how many, recycling plants, or which states have how many industries who are willing to get into this space. So genuinely, one of the understanding has been that they felt, especially the industry felt, that what is the need of getting into this space if we don't have incentives enough. So, so here comes again an opportunity that when we talk about solar PV space, and especially the recycling angle, there has to be a proper market mechanism, a regulatory regulation of the deposition fee, a regulated market mechanism, so that the off-takers, or I would say the recyclers, are essentially able to come into the market, feel incentivized, start up their recycling plants, and even have collection centers. So these I felt were two of the major challenges in this space. I would take a pause now here.
Thank you so much for giving us so much insights on what is going on around us. And yeah, a lot of things are happening, no doubts. And recycling frameworks, industry-wise, recycling frameworks are very much required. So we have with us Mr. Sunil. Mr. Sunil is into construction industry, and as we're seeing that circularity is, coming along multiple industries together, and built environment is something, we are often talking about because there are a lot of, possibility of recycling there. And I wish to know, sir, since you carry a very, very large amount of, experience, what sort of differences you have witnessed and the developments you have witnessed in the construction industry primarily when the industry is moving from linear to circularity?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, just before I get into that, let us look at some of the statistics of the data, which we got it from the Circularity Gap Report and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. You see, about 13.5 billion tons of emissions come out of the housing alone, which is the second largest contributor. And about 40 to 50% of the extracted material is used for infrastructure, hospitals, roads, ports, housing, and all that. And still half the world doesn't have houses to live. So massive construction activity is planned to be there in developing worlds, underdeveloped worlds, and also in developed nations. Now, when we started this project, me and Marina, she's here on the audience, we learned a good deal of things around it. You see, of course, the mindset, as Dr. Anjali said, that remains. But I'll go beyond that. The most important thing is the design element. You see, the thinking that I need to design a building which will build to last, and also it will be used after the end of life or reduce, pollution, waste. Can I use used materials? Can I use alternate sources of materials which are more environment friendly? So design emerged as number one factor to change from linear to circular economy. Now that means it's not only the capability and the mindset, the supporting environment and the infrastructure, like digital passports are not there. And we did a project, only the material which is coming from outside, some of it, they import, let's say, window frames and door frames, they has material passports, but the material which is available locally, it doesn't have that. Second very big challenge was the transfer of information. How do you maintain? Let's say we build a building today, it will be for 40, 50 years. Now we keep on making changes, major modifications to the building. So all that data information has to be fed into the system, digital system, so that when it's over after 30, 40, 50 years, that information is used for further use of the material. So essentially, design and materials emerged as one of the major drivers needed for change. And then, of course, the government policy making, regulations, things like that are there. So I don't want to go into that. That's quite commonly known. But these two were essentially the major components, design and material, which can make a phenomenal change in increasing the rate of circularity. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. And this is much required actually, because the things are getting changed, and circularity is the only, fact and only truth when it comes to, sustaining lifestyles and sustaining ecology as well. And
Yes.
we have someone who is actually an expert into AI, and we are talking about technology. Once we start talking about the technology, artificial intelligence is coming up like anything. And Maya is with us, being a AI policy researcher. She come across a lot of use cases and a lot of practical life experiences when AI-driven policies are being used for deploying and promoting circular economy practices. So Maya, can you give us a few clues how, being a AI policy researcher, you are interplaying the AI-driven policies and circular economy practices?
Thank you so much for the question. It's a pleasure to be here and such an important topic. I will say that we are seeing a very interesting time for artificial intelligence. It's not new, but the accelerated development of generative AI definitely highlighted the importance of the intersection of digital innovation, of data science, with existing livelihoods. Especially now, and I would say in the recent summits of GPay, of G20, of Carnegie, the topic of circular innovation kept on coming. The broader the scope we're seeing for collective economy, serve people to artificial intelligence creates a very interesting intersection between what we used to know as the more alienated algorithmic sphere and whatever is called to be climate innovation, specifically circular economy, and I would say waste management and additional disciplines. We're already seeing various applications which are AI-driven in the field, especially when it comes to predictive maintenance, the predictive analytics, the ability to use previous data for the common good. The intersection with policy is clearly more interesting and slightly more ambiguous, because we need to understand that as much as AI represents an innovative approach to the scaling up of humans and other amplifier of human capabilities, it still mimics human loopholes and fallacies. And with this, we need to take a much more prudent approach when we're scaling up AI tools in a collective and mass scale. The pioneering digital public infrastructure coined in G20 is clearly evidence to the fact that we are trying to move forward with AI-driven tools in circular economy. And still, when it comes to policy design, we need to still understand the implications of biases, the possibility for sociocultural variances not be properly reflected in the data, the way that we should still increase the trust in the policy as well. So these are all part of the policy considerations. And with that, I will still say that the opportunities for AI innovation and circular economy are immense once we're putting the right ethical, sociocultural safeguards. The international community, of course, is addressing everything connected to the balance between the innovation and the need to showcase more creative solutions, as well as the need to put the right boundaries. And in this time point, I mean, we're now seeing probably the first AI regulation approved in, I would say, probably in history in the EU. We are seeing the innovative approaches coming again from India with G20 and generally in South Asia. We are going to see a much more interesting, I would say, years when it comes to the combination of AI, climate adaptation and resilience, and seeing the way that those users, policies, and the technology will be combined, I think will bring different opportunities as well as challenges to circular economy and innovation. But this is clearly the direction that we are seeing from the previous declarations, summits, and probably from what's yet to come. So definitely exciting times for the discipline, I would say, as someone who's been researching air policy for quite a while, as well as for waste management and climate adaptation generally. So just to sum up the statements, I will say that the opportunities are incredibly broad when it comes to the technological opportunities, but in this time point, we also have the responsibility to put the right ethical and sociocultural safeguards to make sure that we have a responsible use of AI across circular economy practices and policies.
So correct. Yes, yes. In the era of, Industry 5.0, the things are getting fast transformable. And circularity is becoming a kind of, reality while being assisted by artificial intelligence. Very right. And we have a young fellow here, Shamita. And Shamita is into a lot many of interventions which are at the grassroots level. And Shamita, when it comes to, combining national, environmental policies and the grassroots level implementation, right? There are a lot of, a lot of things has to be done, right? There's something, there's always, conversion gap when it comes to policy and its real-time implementation. So can you please state and, in the light of circularity, what sort of, strategies one should, take care of, or what should be the plan of action when we combine national level policies to the grassroots level organizations?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Joshi, and thanks for the compliment. That is true. I usually turn up to be the youngest fellow of these panels, and thanks to ICC for still finding value in my experience and expertise. So just to give you a background, I work with an organization called CARPE, the Center for Applied Research and People's Engagement. And their private entity is called EcoSattva Environmental Solutions. So dating back in 2014, CARPE decided to do some grassroots research in Aurangabad. So they're headquartered in Aurangabad, and majority of their work and operations and interventions have been in and around Aurangabad. So to better understand the problem of waste management in the city, they started conducting some grassroots research. Having research as the foundation of the organization, the aim has been to be a data-driven social enterprise to focus when focusing on pervasive civic challenges like waste management and air and water pollution, land degradation. So along with rooting and grounding ourselves in research and data, the organization's methodology has been to have a focus on smaller cities and to tackle these civic challenges through a multi-sectoral approach. And I think that has played a very critical role in bridging the gap between environmental policies and its implementation at ground level. Similar to a lot of approaches that our industry is taking right now, that tech integration can't be avoided and has to be taken into account to address the problem at scale and to have replicability at its core. EcoSattva also went through the tech route. So our organization has an in-house system setting and data-driven decision-making framework called BOTRAM. And I'll quickly run you through the BOTRAM process, through what each letter stands for, and then the impact that we've been able to have through BOTRAM and how it's enabled integration of different policies and government campaigns, both at a state and a national level. So the idea was to overhaul a city and town and a village to be able to have a modular approach and be able to overhaul the SWM mechanism at different levels of governance. We can't do that unless we understand the demography and the foundational challenges that the area is facing. So the B, therefore, stands for baseline assessment. From baseline assessment, we move on to onboarding and orientation of relevant government bodies, as well as local leadership. So not just onboarding and not just identification and onboarding, but also orientation and bringing them on the same page of what the problem is and what are our suggested interventions. From there, the process moves on to training and capacity building of those onboarded stakeholders, but also very importantly, and that this is something that we'll address in this conversation, is our workforce, the informal as well as formalized waste workforce. So training and capacity building of the staff. From there on, there's the very important and key matter when it comes to circular economy, of resource recovery. So how to effectively recover the resources from the door-to-door as well as community-level interventions and drive revenue generation for the different stakeholders involved in the process. Definitely nothing can be accomplished without engaging with the community and addressing their behavior. So awareness campaigns play a very huge role in changing the perception of the community members that we're interacting with towards eliminating garbage vulnerable points, ensuring that they're enrolled onto the waste collection system, as well as integrating and instilling respect and dignity towards the waste collection staff that they're interacting with. And finally, we always enter a geography and a project keeping in mind that we have to exit, keeping in mind that the mechanism has to be handed over to either a local enterprise or the governance itself. The M in the bottom stands for monitoring and maintenance. Having this end-to-end approach through the bottom process, we've been able to we started the bottom process. We piloted this in a very small locality in Aurangabad, and from there we've been able to engage with around 17 lakh residents across 3 countries. We've had the opportunity to work with municipalities in countries in Argentina as well as in Indonesia, recovering through the app that we have been able to recover around 6 lakh metric tons of municipal waste in these different geographies. Having tech integration since the beginning of the interventions have definitely enabled us to share this platform with different stakeholders that we're working with. And this is where the bridging the gap comes in, where we're able to showcase the data to the governing bodies and the administration that we're working with. So it becomes very easy for us to plug in data into Swachh Bharat Mission, into Maji Vasundhara, which is a campaign that runs in Maharashtra for water body restoration. This can be designed to scale. Like I said, it's been from 5,000 to now 17 lakh residents, and around 17 to 20 cities, towns, and villages, especially focused in the Maharashtra region. But also, as I said, the organization started on the foundation of data-driven decision making. So this lies at the core of how we are implementing ourselves and showcasing the impact that we're having to government bodies, and helping them visualize through our dashboards, through different chats, and through different data visualization techniques through the dashboard and the app, that how we are able to implement solid waste management policies and help them channelizing SBM funds in both urban and rural areas. That collectively this can be done at a low cost if we are able to implement the process from start to end, keeping in mind that we'll be able to integrate these with plastic credit systems, carbon credit programs, to generate effective revenue from the resource that we're recovering. So the process itself has been a very effective method to bridge the gap between national level policy making and implementation on the ground for us.
Oh, that's nice. So Shomita spoke about, how data-driven methodology could be helpful for, coming up with the better results, and how the community engagement make the difference. She also spoke about, resource recovery, which is something, much appreciated to remain to a circularity move. So let us take her point, a data-driven approach as one of the point, and let us take it to Maya again. And Maya, as you know that artificial intelligence is getting, integrated with digital transformation these days, right? And circular economy strategies are being blended through lot many of AI-driven or digitally enabled technologies. So how come the concerns like data security and privacy is being resolved? So they are very, very important and pertinent issues when it comes to data privacy and security. How, as a AI expert, you suggest what should be the kind of data strategy, I must call it, to make sure that data security and privacy will be maintained?
Thank you so much for the question. It's probably maybe one of the biggest issues when we are talking today about, I would say, digital innovation at scale, and especially in critical infrastructure and in more sensitive disciplines that can impact the livelihoods of billions. I will say that the advantage we have is the fact that data privacy and security are disciplines that we as a policy community have engaged for quite a long time, meaning even with the emergence of ChatGPT and generative AI, that the exposure is relatively new. When it comes to I would say, the engagement of policymakers, regulators, the scholarly community, these are all pillars that we got to work on their strategy for quite a while. And what used to change is of course, the strategy, as you mentioned, the different tools that we're using, and also the way to transfer data, and I would say data training to employees, from the senior ones to the more junior ones. So especially here, when we're thinking of, I would say, privacy and security at scale, I will address the dual role of artificial intelligence, and I think this is something that's important to mention. Artificial intelligence can be a threat to many of the more basic pillars that we are used to trust. One of the main things is, of course, the fact that we are used to trust humans. We are not as used to trust machines. We are not used to trust algorithms. But one of the things that are being less spoken about is the fact that AI actually serve a pretty strong method and tool in cybersecurity practices. So I would say that most of the studies that I got to be involved with is also discussing the duality of AI. Meaning, so we as policymakers, when we are thinking of AI as I would say, as an agent and whatever is coming to digital transformation and the accelerated digitized interfaces that we're having, there's a lot of digital interactions between users and disciplines. We can also use AI for defense, meaning plenty of cybersecurity tools and defense strategies and practices are also AI driven, as AI help us to identify any anomalies in data sets and in other practices. And this is a crucial pillar to say, I would say, in terms of the practicalities and how we as a policy community trying to assess it. So it's not just black and white that AI is bad or good. It actually serves both sides of the map. The question, who is the actors using it? Now, I will say, following your question, that because we are seeing much more discussions about digital public infrastructure, meaning especially led by India, we are seeing much more public services digitized almost completely, thanks to the fact that we have biometric identities. We're able to transfer all over the digital space. The need to make sure that we are having the right digital protection regulations, tools, and policies increases. There are some obstacles because, of course, this is every country has its own way to localize data protection. And one of the things that we are working on quite, I would say, substantially, is seeing how we can actually create data bridges, creating this harmonization processes between data transferring across countries, especially as we're speaking about more collective perceptions of data. So we are using a lot of the, I would say, existing regulations for data privacy and security, assigning the right personnel to the role. The main difference, I would say, today is that we are dealing with a much broader sociocultural scope. There are much more countries and social groups involved. And therefore, for us, I would say that the focus has become to be how we make sure that this data transfer across different places globally, especially for circular economy and climate adaptation, is also secure, and we can also guarantee that the data is transferred in a way that does not harm the user anonymization / the user sovereignty or autonomy online. So we'll be glad to delve into any of these aspects.
That's right. That's right. Especially when it comes to diversified global places and variety of standards of data privacy and security. Makes great sense. Yes. And let us take the question to Mr. Sunil. Being the board member with the majority of quality standard organizations, quality become a kind of very important concern these days. And circularity when it comes to in the urban ecosystem, right? A variety of industries are in place, and those are serving the urban ecosystems. And specifically the area you belong, primarily the built environment, construction industry. So can you please let us know about few use cases or some success stories where the transformation was very successful, and we are able to maintain the sustainability in the particular industry, and we're able to succeed through, or maybe these cases could be helpful for other industries also.
Yeah, thank you so much. You see, I think as all of us know, circular economy is a kind of a management or a science or a principal practice is relatively new. When I started reading about it, learning more about it, initially it came to mind, what is new in it? It's really nothing new. If you read Sustainable Development Goals, at least 100 places it will tell you about improve reliability, reduce waste, reduce loss, reduce energy, so on. These are the terms we quality professionals have been living in day in and day out. Last 30, 40 years, I've been in total quality management and excellence. So when I looked at the circular economy and the quality management tools and principles, I saw here is a tremendous opportunity to marry the two domains. And circular economy domain was relatively new. And here also we talk about eliminate pollution and reduce waste and build to last and things like that. So just to give you 2-3 concrete examples, if you go to ISO 9001 standard, there's a full requirement on designing. Now, after we read circular economy, and then if we read design requirements in 9001 standard, it opens up a whole new perspective of design to eliminate waste and things like that. Another very beautiful interface is about process management. You see, circularity is here to stay. Now, it is very important it gets institutionalized in corporates. It becomes routine work, actually. It cannot be one-off. CEO comes, it drives some initiative, leaves, and we go back to normal. So quality management helps the processes to be integrated into routine work, people trained, create structures, build roles, responsibilities, have objectives. So circularity, if any organization is seriously working about it, it has to change procurement policies. It has to change design. It has to look at identification, traceability. All this is embedded in quality management and so on, right? Now, coming to the other dimension of success stories around circularity, yes, few and far in between. I mean, when we were doing this project, we wanted to prove when we developed these guidelines, we developed the circular house guidelines to demonstrate to the reader it works. It's not a theory. Somebody is talking about it. Here it is. So a few examples I can give you. Let me start with the United Arab Emirates. That's where I live and all. I'm sure a lot of you or all of you may have heard about Masdar, the city which came up. They build residences out of, which are very eco-friendly. Then there is one Al Dafra waste recycling company. It takes the solid waste of construction and demolition waste, processes it, sorts it out, removes steel from that, and develop aggregates which are used in the roads and other filling the pits. So this is putting the, end of life waste to alternate use. Some 3 million tires were collected by municipality and Tadweer. Tadweer is the waste management organization here. And they processed it to make, for the children play area, so that when the kid falls, it doesn't hurt, or the jogging tracks, these were used. Now, if we go outside of United Arab Emirates, there's a Brummen Town Hall, which I'm sure a lot of you may have heard about in Holland. You see, this house was designed without using cement. It was designed as a Lego, that after its life of 30, 40 years, it can be dismantled instead of demolishing. So in construction industry, the designers, architects have to design the building in such a way it is not demolished but dismantled. And then you remove the items, test them out for their safety, and put it to alternate use. It's a beautiful example of this. Another is, pre-demolition waste audit has been introduced as guidelines so that what can be recovered and used and sorted out. Another good example is the Circle building in Amsterdam. In this building, about 15,000-20,000 old pair of jeans were used, salvaged material from old buildings. And they, I think, used elevator using the principle of circular economy, product as a service. Is it this company doesn't have to buy the elevator? Mitsubishi comes and installs it, maintains it, owns it, and we pay 1 cent or 1 penny for every ride. So product is delivered as a service. And then at the end of life, Mitsubishi can dismantle it, put it, recondition it, put it for alternate use instead of extracting the materials. So in the guidelines which we published, we have some very good, inspiring, innovative examples, like carbon negative cement. Bill Gates' organization has developed it at a test base, yet to be commercially upscaled. No carbon footprint. So Brimstone Energy in the United States is working on it. So there are a lot of examples of using innovative materials, designs for successful 2-story largest printing building, 2-story building made using 3D technology. Dubai government has rolled out a 3D printing strategy itself for the country for building houses. I think that's enough for me at this stage. Over to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks. It was really great, insightful. When it comes to combining a variety of experience and use cases, especially in the circular construction industry. We have with us Anjali ji, and since she is very much close to Government of India, and being the part of telecommunication sector circular economy committee, we should know about the policy perspective of circular economy. And when it comes to country like India, we are full of challenges, and how the circular economy coming all together, along with the challenges being the largely populated country, and a lot of promises that government has to keep when it comes to international forums. So how you see government's policy and the real-time implementation of the same?
Okay, thanks. That's a very tricky question that you asked me. Okay, but I'll actually also take up some points from the previous esteemed speakers. I think a lot of points were making a lot of sense, like Sunil spoke about the design. Apparently, in the solar photovoltaic waste management space, generally a lot of designing doesn't happen in India, which should be happening. But today we import a lot of panels, and generally the raw materials and all are imported and we assemble. So the Made in India campaign that we have, it could be more strengthened towards, having industry focus and setting up more PV plants, which are more from the designing stage. Another thing is also the use of alternative materials. That is when we talk about designing a panel, there is a crystalline silicon technology and a cadmium telluride technology. So apparently cadmium telluride is not considered to be, because of the harmful metals in it, it is not considered to be that effective compared to crystalline silicon. But can we look at alternative materials to be used? So for instance, perovskite could be used with silicon, a multi-junction technology could be formed, and that could be more, the carbon footprint in that case would be almost zero. It would be more environment friendly. So all these aspects are there when it comes to the designing. Then Shamita spoke about the informal sector. Now, unfortunately, even in the India's case, when we talk about waste, informal prevalence is quite huge. When we talk about just the electronic waste segment, there are around only 20% of the waste is recycled formally. Rest is all informally handled. And a lot, that is why, goes into the landfills. So if you talk about from the policy perspective, I would say, yes, we need more reinforced policies in this domain, more stronger advocacy in this domain. But at the same time, a lot also depends upon the formal sector, how best they can converge it, the informal into them, merge them together. Getting them community participation is very important on the ground, grassroots participation. And that is where I think Shamita is doing, her institution is doing a great job of bringing those two together very close. Third is the aspect of AI, like Maya was talking about. So in a lot of countries now, suppose AI is an incredible technology if it is used right, because of course it cannot it cannot actually substitute human intelligence, but it should go hand in hand. And we as humans should be able to make use the most effective way of it. So when it comes to, for instance, e-waste, artificial intelligence is actually used a lot in other countries to monitor the waste, whether it's through mobile phone applications, whether it's through, a lot of countries also have battery recycling mobile, vans, which basically are able to recover the waste. Once you put a battery into it, recover the waste, understand the recovery of how much waste can come out as metals, the good metals, and the rest could be recycled or repurposed. So and when it comes to the telecommunication space, the same thing is applicable. In India, telecom actually captures 6% of the GDP, and today nearly around over 2 million people are actually getting jobs in this space, the second largest market in India. And no doubt we are actually a front runners in this space, telecom, digital communications, when we talk about ICT per se. India is definitely emerging superpower. But when it comes to the waste management, again, it is the same story, that, it is a part of the e-waste. And apparently after computers, it's like capturing 12 to 15% of the e-waste component of basically the telecom. So the factors of informal sector predomination, people being unaware about the telecom waste, because it's a very new field today in India. I am a member of the committee, and apparently the government of India has put together a stakeholders committee where people from all sectors per se, all sectors, whether it's industry, private, public, as well as from the civil society, have coming together, brainstorming, and most likely the government is able to come out with a vision strategy document, an action plan document on CE in telecom. But what we are essentially seeing, some of the challenges is the lack of research and development, of setting up, of having recycling technologies in India. Like we are talking about indigenous technologies. And unfortunately, in the telecom space, R&D labs do not exist today, a lot of them. So we do need a reinforcement in that space. Third, capacity building, like coming to Shamita's point again, that it's important. It's very, very important to have very structured capacity building and skills training for people to understand, for manufacturers, developers, in the whole life cycle of a telecom product, equipments. Because essentially, at the end of the day, it's the producers, the manufacturers, as well as the consumers who have to understand how to recycle and repurpose the waste rather than disposing it off. So capacity building is essentially most important. Then the supply chain factors, the value chain. It is a very complicated supply chain when it comes to, or a value chain in telecom. How to simplify that, how to make every step in the supply chain more structured and generating more jobs. That is again a challenge. So these are some of the aspects that I think the government is now trying to consider in the strategy, which is likely to come up. And since I've been a part of the drafting committee, so most likely we are finalizing it, and most likely the government is able to come up with a final plan of action very soon. But these are some of the aspects that I think not only in the telecom space, but across various sectors, these challenges are very much prevalent, and a lot of NGOs now have started coming up, talking about, in a big way. And that is where even C-STEP in this domain as a not-for-profit has been taking up a lot of capacity building sessions on this, started to taking up a lot of capacity building sessions, as well as, developing frameworks which are more India-centric, pan-India-centric, and also determines which are the areas where such recycling centers can actually be set up eventually over the 10 years or 15 years down the line, when this problem of e-waste, especially in the e-waste segment, is expected to be quite huge. So yeah, I'll take a pause here.
Thank you so much. It's really very insightful. And the whole spectrum you spoke about, starting from the policy and the stakeholder, involvement also. And let us take the last question based on what you have, give us the input on. And let us take Shomita as responding to the last question of mine. Shomita, waste-based livelihood becoming a kind of, great avenue when it comes to, rural livelihoods. So, and you being a person who is involved into grassroots engagements also, have you witnessed any sort of, community engagement which involve people for waste-based livelihood development initiatives?
Absolutely. I would really like to give it to ICC for bringing in such diverse speakers. This is really valuable for all of us. I'm really enjoying everyone's insights so much. And yeah, like Anjali mentioned, that this informal sector is so huge in India, and I think the problem is known by everyone and understood by majority who are working in the industry. The disenfranchisement of the informal workforce, despite of global plastics treaty and EPR policies getting enhanced year by year. The COPs, the n number of COPs that we're having, and I think all of these definitely work towards building a platform for the informal workforce. But I'm really hoping that policies like right to repair are introduced in our country, so that the electronics and the telecommunication industry can also start including and integrating the informal workforce in a more tangible and structured manner. And along those lines, I'll answer your question, Dr. Joshi. In the areas that we're working in, as I mentioned, working with the formal as well as informal workforce is very crucial, because globally around 60% of plastics is recycled by the informal workforce. And nevertheless, their working conditions are superbly undignified, and especially women, when it comes to when we bring in the gender lens, especially in India, where there's generational stigma against waste workers, and especially women waste workers. At Carpe Ecosatva, we've been trying to integrate the informal women workforce into our interventions. So one of our flagship programs is called Unnati Waste Management Services. And I'll just quickly share the link in the chat. Yep. So Unnati is a women-led enterprise that is run by 4 former informal waste workers. The waste management service provides segregated waste collection service to, as you mentioned, rural areas. Because majority of the urban setups in India do have some sort of municipal waste collection system, ineffective, improper, somewhat there that changes from place to place. For example, I live in Indore, and Indore has been the cleanest city in the country for 8 years, but the collection services in Indore is powered by the municipality. In majority of the other cities, it's run by a contracted waste collection agency. However, in rural areas in India, the waste collection system is what is lacking and missing the most. Despite of Swachh Bharat Mission and other policy-based schemes that are available for rural governing bodies as well. So Carpe Ecosattva's primary intervention in these areas has been to empower the government bodies in effectively channelizing and utilizing those available funds and plugging in Unnati as a waste management enterprise as a social enterprise to fill in those gaps of collection and processing in the rural areas. As much as we hate the fact plastic has reached the most remotest of areas in our country, and there might not be mobile connectivity, but there will be plastic connectivity, and that's why we have to ensure that locals take the responsibility of their waste management ecosystem in those areas. So Unnati as a waste management service has focused on identifying and onboarding local informal women waste workers onto their enterprise. Carpe Ecosattva has been building their capacity through training, workshops on soft skills, driving. So the 4 women waste workers have learned how to drive, have received driver's license, and ensure that waste is transported to the nearest MRF on a periodic basis based on the logistics and area to the nearest MRF. As I mentioned, the bottom process that Carpe Ecosattva uses in overhauling the SWM system, this entire process actually has been handed over to the Unnati Waste Management Service. So these women waste workers who are now entrepreneurs, have been trained to implement BoatRam through their phones, through the BoatRam app, whenever they start their work into a new Gram Panchayat. So with support from Carpe and our trained teams, we go into a new Gram Panchayat with Unnati Waste Management. We start the baseline through the BoatRam app and handhold Unnati throughout the BoatRam implementation system. Carpe's role stays as a monitoring and maintenance body, and in any support required by the Unnati members. However, we really need the community members as well as the local governing leaders to take Unnati as a waste management entity seriously. Because of this long-standing stigma that the community has against them, it becomes very important for Unnati to build that credibility and confidence and trust within the residents of the village in establishing their presence as a waste collection, as a business in the area, who are driving economic, environmental change in the waste management ecosystem in the region. So I think that has been a very important livelihood that we've been able to develop for these 4 women, and our goal really is to add at least 10 informal waste worker women onto Unnati as enterprise owners within the next 5 years. And again, it's a matter of integrating the technology that we use through Unnati Waste Management and making sure that the local government body is able to see both the tech platform as well as Unnati as a service provider in leading the waste management of the region.
That's nice. We wish Unnati to grow more and do the Unnati further. And so with Shomita's input, we are concluding today's panel discussion. We are really grateful to Dr. Anjali Taneja for giving us so much insights on the government perspective of circular economy. Mr. Sunil Thandani for giving us the international insights on particularly in the construction industry. He spoke so much about standardization and the quality control. Maya for giving us AI perspective of circular economy. She took so much, in the insightful data for, supporting the questions that I've asked. While answering the questions, she talked about many things like data privacy and security, which is a concern these days. Shomita, of course, was no doubt being a younger, panelist. She is able to, give us more insights on what she is doing with her livelihood grassroots organization. So I request now, may I request Ms. Surabhi to take and please give the vote of thanks to our esteemed panelist. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Sudhanshu, for your time today. And thanks all the speakers. Dr. Sudhanshu has a meeting today, so he'll be leaving at 5. Dr. Sudhanshu, there's a question coming in the chat box. I would like to take it. If you want to drop, I think you can do that because you have a meeting scheduled.
You may take the question.
Yeah, there is a question which is coming from somebody, Mamta Jain. She has been asking regarding the fabric which is going into waste, that they are trying to make use of the recycled fabric, and they feel that there is a consensus feeling that the upcycled, recycled material is not, people do not do not use it that much. They do not buy the recycled products very easily. There is not so much awareness there. So what is the government doing in creating some policies? Even the GST is also there, which is equal on the recycled products also, and the product which is made up of virgin material also. So that ways, if the product is recycled, but there is no difference in the costing, then how would you entice the customer to buy the recycled product? Not just the awareness would work. There has to be some substantial amount of costing that is making a difference also, because if somebody is buying a recycled product, then definitely some would think that this is not as good as the material made from a virgin material. So that ways, if anybody of you, Anjali, if you would want to take up this question, is the government doing something on that part? Can some policy coming in that kind of a area, or what is it? How should it happen?
Okay. I mean, so this is basically related to textiles, I guess, right? So recently I heard in one of the sessions I attended recently, was at a conference, that textiles, if they are designed in a fashion, if they are designed with, a material, they are the most dissolvable and recyclable, So when it comes to textiles, I think I have also heard across the government channels that there are policies that are most likely coming up in this space. It is just a matter of time. But I feel textiles is also about, when we talk about these multi-brand chains that are, we go to malls and we see these heavy brands that are selling these merchandise. What is their policy on recycling? Is that even clear? Is in the Indian context, if we are selling, the retail shops are selling, merchandise at such a high cost, does that cost entail the recycling bit also? So at the end of the day, it is all about that community, collaborations between the government and the relevant retailers as well as these chains. There is hopefully, that there would be new committees that would be formed, taking into consideration the industry perspective as well with the government. But what I have heard recently, and of course, this is definitely the information that I've heard through my very limited communication in the government, in the telecom spaces, that yes, in the textile sector as well, there are coming up new policies which are looking at the upstream recycling, and which is very important. I think Shomita has to say, so I'll stop here.
I just need to add one point. I think Anjali is very right on this. See, when it comes to circularity, the most initial industry was textile only, because circularity starts from textile only, because it is like, reusing the material. And when it comes to the benefits from the taxation perspective, government is. I was recently, like Anjali was also saying, I was with a meeting in a FICCI's event, and the government is giving us lot many clues that they are looking out for some sort of taxation rebate on reused material, and it's trading as well. So the traders are getting benefit, and they will see probably in the years to come, maybe in 2024 financial year, we're going to have some sort of GST rebate on reused material or upscale material. So we are looking for our figure crossed, and we are expecting that government is, encouraging circularity at the larger pace. And in days to come, India will be more circular in terms of actions also and policy support. Thank you. And please allow me to leave the meeting now. Thank
Sure,
you.
sure. Thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you, everybody.
Sudhanshu.
Thanks for your
Thanks for
time.
your
Thank you,
time.
Maya, Mr. Sunil, Shomita, and Dr. Anjali. Thank you. Thank you, Anjali. Thank you, Survi ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
So
you.
I hope, Mamta, we have been able to answer your query. So, Shomita had to say something. Yes, please, Shomita.
Yeah, I mean, in response to Mamta's question, the Global Plastics Treaty is an up and coming global policy that will definitely enable policy making in different countries based on the local and regional availabilities and accessibility to tax rebates and utilizing financial instruments to promote upcycled and recycled materials. And this will include alternatives as well. So not just promoting materials that have increased recycled content, but also they're pushing hard on reduction and reuse, which will enable other markets, including fiber and paper-based alternatives and textile-based alternatives. Then second, there's right now textile waste recycling is being prioritized by a lot of international aid companies. There are active projects going on since the past few years, and will definitely be more up and coming in the next few years to increase the textile recycling industry in our region. Because right now that is the downstream supply chain, as Mamta, you already probably know, is far too few. And that is what a lot of these international aid companies and other interested donors are looking into, that how can we boost the existing recycling industry in India and use existing infrastructure to promote textile recyclability, because it's a completely different ballgame, as you might already know. So and workers have to be trained, new infrastructure and equipment has to be introduced to address the problem at scale. But yeah, lots is happening for sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Shomita, for your perspective also. So I think, Mamta, we have a good news coming. Everybody was so hopeful that something's gonna happen in that area as well in 2024. We are definitely going to hear something positive on that note. With this, we are coming to an end to this session. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot, all the speakers, for coming today, taking out time for this webinar. And it was definitely an enriching and insightful discussion. And thanks to the valuable contributions from all the speakers, Mr. Sunil, Maya, Shomita, Dr. Anjali. Thanks for your perspective and presence. A special
Thank you.
appreciation to Dr. Sudhanshu, who had to go today for some important meeting. And my heartfelt gratitude to our engaged and wonderful audience for having this kind of a patience, for waiting for their turn to get their answers. and I hope we have been able to answer your queries. In case there is something still left, you can definitely write to me on my email ID, which is surbhi@icce.com. I'm sending this in the chat box. You can write to me anytime on this email ID if you have any queries. And for the textile industries, I would want to tell all the participants, we are coming up with the circular chat series. The next season we are running right now, the season 5 is running, which is talking about waste from electronics and electrical equipment. But we are coming up with the season 6 in 2024, soon after 2-3 months, I guess, which will be talking about textiles, circularity in textiles especially, and that will be a detailed discussion we'll be having about textile sector. So do attend in case if you have any queries or anything that you would want to add up to that conversation. Do talk to us and do join the chat series when they are launched. So thank you. Thanks a lot. And everybody have a great weekend. Merry Christmas to everyone and a very happy new year, because the next webinar we'll be having in the new year, 2024. Yeah. So thanks a lot, everyone. Merry Christmas and happy new year.
Thanks,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy
Merry
New Year.
Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Surbhi.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.